Hey guys, Rust Belt Collector here with another video. Today I'm talking about Star Wars knockoff clone trooper action figures. Now, I'm not talking about this figure. I addressed this in a previous video and I established pretty well, I think, that my opinion of this is that it's some sort of factory overrun or, unreleased action figure, but that it still is an official Hasbro figure. What I found out from Hasbro, I think, confirms that, and also plastic quality, paint apps, all of it ties together to make this, in my opinion, an official Hasbro figure of some sort or another. Now, I should say right up front, this is not a response video of any kind to JCC2224's video. I'm actually recording this on the same day that he just dropped his latest update about this figure. It's purely coincidental because I ordered the figures that I'm going to be talking about a month ago from AliExpress, and they just arrived today, so kind of perfect timing, honestly. I can't wait to talk about them. They're interesting, and they might tie into some of the things that he said about how you can now find this figure all over the place on the internet. Now, I got this one from Tongori, just like JCC2224 did. I think this is a legit Hasbro figure. The ones I'm going to be talking about today, I do not think are legit Hasbro figures. So, you know about these. You know about this guy being the overstock and this guy being an official Hasbro release. So my question is, what are these guys? What I'm talking about here today are these four, and this guy just lost his hand. That shows high quality craftsmanship. I'm talking about these four clone troopers I got. As you can see, the 91st Recon Trooper, very similar to this one. You've got the 5th Fleet Security, very similar to that one. You've got the ARC 170, I can't think of what this guy's name is, but the ARC 170 Trooper. Never was seen in a movie or anything, but yeah, there's him. And then there's this guy, the Elite Republic Forces Clone Trooper with the Mandalorian skull and the Jang eyes and whatever that is. I think that's on the official figure as well. Not that I'm saying that these aren't official figures, not yet. I'm going to prove that in this video. But yeah, I think that's on the original. I don't have either of these two that I can compare with, but I do have these two, as you can see. Now, right off the bat, I mean, just looking at these guys lined up and then this guy in hand, you don't really notice anything that stands out to point out that, these are knockoffs. I'm qualifying these as knockoffs and not bootlegs because I qualify bootlegs as bad representations or like almost parodies of official releases. You see a lot of like the vintage 70s and 80s action figures coming out of like Europe that tried to mimic the vintage Star Wars figures, and those are bootlegs. These I think are knockoffs because they're intentional like copies of an official released figure. Like that, these two figures are identical, and these two figures are identical, but they're intentional, and so I feel like that's a knockoff and not a bootleg. It's not any kind of goofy parody or anything. It's very direct and it's very intentional in how they copied the figures. So these figures have the same articulation that you would expect with your Saga Collection clone troopers. You got hips, knees, ankles. Oh, those ankles are really tight. They've got a little bit of a snap to them as well. You can kind of hear that. And that's a big kind of clue with these guys. I mean, you can ratchet the shoulders up, but it's tough. It's not smooth. And when you do it, it kind of, I noticed it kind of tears the plastic. So, you get standard range, but then you'll notice right there, it's torn like, yeah, it's like ripped the plastic up a little bit. That's not something that happens with these two. The other thing is trying to spin the head is quite difficult. It's just very tight. It's like it's smashed on there with a hammer, and you really don't get good articulation with it at all. But again, it's very similar. Looking back here, it's got your standard antenna, just like any antenna mold, but the plastic is, I don't know, it almost feels a little bit brittle. It's not as rubbery. It's dull and, kind of just, I don't know, it's got flash on it. It's not very good, especially when you look at it beside this. This is an official Hasbro one, and you can kind of see it's got a shine to it. It's really wibbly wobbly and rubbery. It's soft plastic, and this is very brittle plastic, and you can't even get it to stay in there. It just kind of plops out, you know. It doesn't stay in there at all. So yeah, I mean, these just kind of look and feel, when you get up close with them, they just don't look like an official Hasbro release. And the thing is, I've never seen knockoffs at the 3 3/4 inch scale that are this good. I mean, these are almost exact replicas of existing figures. But looking at them up close, I can confidently say that these are not official Hasbro figures. I mean, the plastic on the legs especially just looks kind of fuzzy. The details are very rounded and soft. It looks like it's just squished, like the mold is squished somehow. Now, one possibility is that somebody somewhere in China got a hold of official Hasbro molds that were worn out and then reused them to cast these figures. That's highly possible because, you know, it would explain why the molds are so bad. These were maybe old molds that were just used and used and used and used for Hasbro. They discarded them, and then someone went, hey, I know how to make a dime off of that. Just as a comparison for what I'm talking about with the knees there, you can see side by side how this one is nice and sharp and this one is misshapen and kind of just ugly looking. But in all other respects, you know, pretty solid. I did do a quick test. You can pop off this trooper's head and that one will go on, but you know, you can see it's quite the strain to actually get it to move. And then you can put this one on and it's nice and smooth actually. You know, it's a little bit loosey-goosey, but it's pretty smooth. So again, that's just a really weird like quality issue that these figures all have. They've got goofy joints, very stiff joints that don't want to move, tearing plastic, wide set hips I noticed as well. They don't really want to set their arms to their side as much, which these are all small things, but they're little differences that kind of stand them out against these figures. So now looking at these two together in terms of their paint apps, because these are roughly the same paint apps, you'll notice that this one has a little bit of battle damage. Now this is the Tungori figure, this is the AliExpress figure. There's a little bit of battle damage there that isn't present with this one. And this one also has a much darker, deeper red, whereas this one has almost like a cherry or a bright apple red color to it, which is an interesting difference that they have. Apart from that, the applications are all the same on the side, the thigh, helmet, and the chest. So yeah, they're very similar in their paint apps, but they're also subtly different with color and just missing that little bit of battle damage. Now these paint apps, like I said in my previous video, do match the Target exclusive figure, so it's interesting that this one matches the Target exclusive, an official Hasbro release, and this one doesn't. This one's kind of goofy and wonky. And we'll set this guy off to the side here. And now we'll compare these two. So again, very similar paint apps from the Hasbro version to this AliExpress version. You can see though, like already his hips are much wider, his arms are just kind of like out to his side. But the paint apps are very similar, but again, the color is slightly different. On the Hasbro one, the blue is a slightly darker shade, whereas with this one, it's a little bit lighter, and also the lines are much thinner. You'll notice here on the helmets, they're ever so slightly different in the weight of the lines. And then also here on the gut line there, that's a much thinner line than here. And they also have different places where they line up. This one kind of stops here, whereas this one goes all the way around. These are just subtle differences, but again, it kind of shows how they're not direct copies of each other. It's not that, you know, this one is a factory overrun or something of this one. They're very clearly mimicking the Hasbro release, but they're not doing a very good job of it. They're missing the little details. Probably the biggest difference actually with these is that this is battle damaged and this one is not. So it's very easy to kind of tell the difference just on that note. But if you were looking at them just standing up beside each other, you wouldn't really be able to tell at, like, you know, just a glance that this one is from AliExpress and probably is a knockoff, and that this one is the official Hasbro release. Something that makes it even harder to tell these ones apart is that these softer plastic, you know, bad details, flimsy hands that like to just kind of pop out of the sockets like that. These figures are stamped on their feet with the 2005 LFL Hasbro Made in China. So that makes me kind of think that these are probably just kind of discarded molds from Hasbro officially, and someone over there at the factory said, you know, I can make some good money off of knockoff clone troopers, and then this is what they made. The other option, of course, is they could take a Hasbro figure, they could kind of take it apart and mold each individual part on their own and then make casts of that. And that would still leave the same markings, you know, it would still capture the Hasbro and the China and all those other markings. But yeah, these were really weird. They just popped up on AliExpress. I've never seen them before. And so I figured, hey, you know, it'd be interesting to pick these up, see what they're all about, see if they are, you know, official Hasbro figures. I think that this one is probably the best looking one in terms of paint apps and also the plastic, but even so, it still suffers from all the same issues that the other ones do. The weird antenna, the difficult head articulation, snappy joints that don't really move smoothly. They almost ratchet. I wish I could compare these last two to the official Hasbro figures, but unfortunately I just don't have them. You can still see though how these look, and you can look online, or perhaps you may even own these figures at home that you can compare them to. I think they're very convincing, almost direct knockoffs of the proper Hasbro figures, but again, there's just those subtle differences that really set them apart from being official. You can even see here, like this one's almost got like smudged paint, very, very fuzzy paint. It's difficult to tell. So yeah, I just picked these guys up on AliExpress, and I really didn't even know what to do a video about them for. I just thought that it was worth investigating whether these were official or if they were some sort of knockoff bootleg. Turns out I'm pretty confident in saying that these are knockoffs. These are just reproductions of official Hasbro figures, and they're decent, but they're definitely not perfect. They're definitely not anywhere near the quality of the original Hasbro figures. And this all brings me back to the video by JCC2224. I wouldn't have even talked about this point unless I'd seen his video, and having seen it, it made me stop and think just briefly. Now this figure is from Tungori. JCC2224 also bought his from Tungori online on eBay. So this is, I think both of ours are official Hasbro. That's just my opinion. You can watch both of our videos, you know, previously to kind of understand why I think that. But then there's this one, and this one obviously came from the AliExpress bundle that I bought, and I'm very certain that this is a knockoff. So just as a word of warning, based on JCC's video and based on, you know, the stuff that I've seen online, the listings on eBay that say Red Dot Clone Trooper may actually be this figure. I don't know for sure, I haven't bought any of them, but just knowing that these knockoffs are out there now, that these softer plastic, you know, kind of cheaply made versions of that figure or even that figure, it leads me to think that those ones on eBay that are, you know, Red Dot Clone Trooper lot, you know, 5 of them for $4 or $5 a piece, I don't think that it's that figure. I think that it might be this figure. Again, I don't have any evidence to back that up. That's just a theory, but just know that these knockoffs are out there now. If you find these guys cheap from like a China seller or from AliExpress directly, they're probably knockoff. So just be aware of that, you know, just a warning to anyone who maybe doesn't want a knockoff figure in their collection. You know, if you want the same one that I bought and JCC bought, get the one from Tungori. I think he still has them active. If you want to risk, you know, maybe a knockoff, you could always try the other lots on eBay, or you can go from AliExpress and you're guaranteed to get these knockoffs. I'm not suggesting you do that though. I really don't support knockoffs. I think that they're, you know, just kind of bad. They can confuse people that aren't experienced with what an official figure looks like, so they might pay full price for this figure or any of these other 4 figures that I have and think that it's an official Hasbro figure. It's got the markings, but it's really not, and I wouldn't want that to happen. I just think that's bad for the collecting community as a whole. But yeah, I mean, these are knockoff figures. I'm pretty confident in saying that these are officially knockoffs, if that's the way to put it. These are official knockoffs. They're not fake knockoffs, they're official knockoffs. One final note though is that I think it's really interesting that they decided somewhere to make these 4 clones. Out of all the other clones that were made, the 501st, the 212th, you know, all of them were in the antenna mold. Why did they decide to make these 4? They could have made shock troopers that were in the movie, the 212th were in the movie, and instead they decided to make 4 kind of random clone troopers that were either Hasbro designed or were concept art clone troopers. I have not seen these knockoff figures in any official Star Wars movie canon paint apps. So it's just really interesting that they would take that route over maybe a more popular design for the clone troopers. But who knows, maybe there's other ones of these out there just kind of floating online or in some, you know, flea market bin somewhere. But at any rate, that's, I don't know, this isn't really a review, just this is my comparison of these figures. I kind of rambled there for a bit, so hopefully you stuck it out to the very end. I suggest you check out JCC224's channel and his video about that 91st Recon figure there. He's got a cool channel, a lot of really awesome content just besides that specific video that I'm pointing out. But definitely check out his channel, it's really awesome. As always, thanks for watching. Be sure to leave a like and a comment. I'd love to know what you guys think of these figures. And subscribe if you want to see more videos like this in the future. I've got some really awesome content planned coming up soon. Maybe with some more bootleg knockoff figures. One never knows. Thanks again for watching, guys, and I will catch you in the next video.